Hi, welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to address a frequently asked question, and that is, what is the difference between my two beading on fabric books? Well, let's talk about first how they are alike. Both books contain in their front matter information you need to know when purchasing beads and beading supplies so that you have the best possible outcome with your beading. Both books also cover my top beading tips and the basic bead embroidery stitches, which will be a starting point. Both of my books do contain other beading techniques that I've spent hours asking what-if questions of fabric and beads and have made new beading techniques that don't appear anywhere else in print. Oh, and did I mention? Both books are written so that an even absolute beginner can follow along and be successful. They include many color photos and step-by-step professional illustrations on how to do all the beading stitches. So let's go take a look what the techniques are inside of Bead Creative Art Quilts. Here are some of the new beading techniques I've developed that appear inside my book, Bead Creative Art Quilts. One of the new techniques is the beaded coil, and you can see that this is very dimensional and there's different points of texture by using larger beads. Another technique that's found in the book is how to make totally beaded motifs. One of the prime issues of making a totally beaded motif is no matter how tightly you sew rows of beads together on the fabric, you will always see the background fabric coming through so that the imagery is not opaque. It is translucent. I've come up with a new way to bead large beaded motifs on fabric and get totally solid beads, making the configuration of your pattern. Another technique that's covered in Bead Creative Art Quilts is how to write words with beads. Words can add imagery to your quilts, and you could even sign your quilts with beads. The beaded kaleidoscope is a technique that I've developed that is an example of the elevated beading techniques I've developed. As you can see here in the beaded kaleidoscope, all the bead lines are not laying on the fabric, they're actually elevated off the fabric. And the beaded kaleidoscope is a really fun motif to put on your quilts. Another technique I cover with all the directions is how to make the beaded dragonfly. I give you the directions in the book, not only how to bead the dragonfly, but how to make the wings with free motion embroidery on your sewing machine. And I also have a kit available that you can purchase the dragonfly wings and all the beads you need to complete 2 dragonflies. So these are just some of the techniques that are in my book, Bead Creative Art Quilts. I'm going to show you different techniques that I've developed in my book, Bead Creative Like Crazy, Beading Inspired by Crazy Quilts. And as the title says, my inspiration for designing these beading techniques were the opulent stitches done with embroidery on Victorian crazy quilts. I've developed a foolproof method of accurately replicating these stitches by, in the back of the book, having a lot of patterns for each stitch that you can replicate on your fabric. You can see all these in this area are different configurations for the fan stitch. And then here's what some of the fan stitches look like after they've been constructed. So I've done a sampler piece there of various fan stitches. No crazy quilt was ever complete without a spider and a spider web, as a spider was a sign of good luck. Here are some examples of the fly stitch done in different configurations with size 11 seed beads. You'll notice that doing bead embroidery with beading is more three-dimensional than thread stitching is. Also covered in the book are many ideas of how to make different types of beaded flowers, beaded leaves, and beaded stem configurations. Here's an example of some of the patterns and design options I have in the book for the chain stitch. Here's a gold chain stitch row that employs not only seed beads but bugles, and this chain stitch row uses only size 11 seed beads, but I've also sewn something to the fabric in the open areas. It was a dark blue bead. You might recognize this piece here because it is the piece that was photographed for the book cover, Bead Creative Like Crazy. And in the book I also cover how to make beaded grapes, and also here's a different fan configuration. The chevron stitches are in the book as well as the cretin stitches. So if you want to recreate embroidery stitches with beads, I highly recommend my book, Bead Creative Like Crazy, Beading Inspired by Crazy Quilts.